Alrighty then, we are back, or rather I'm back, with another quasi review. A few days ago I just did the UL Crown review. Really didn't get too in depth with it. It was something I did. I just wanted to take an older, established piece of hardware and see, is this still relevant? And I wanted to weigh pros, cons, etc., and see if in today's vaping market it still held up. Well, I'm going to continue that today with the second piece of equipment that I bought at the same time. Again, I bought the tank and the mod together for like 23 bucks. What we're taking a look at is the IPV5 by Pioneer4You. What is it? It's a 200 watt box mod. We'll get into the air quotes in just a minute, or when we get into the review. 200 watt box mod, dual 18650, temperature control, nickel titanium stainless steel, wattage variable with the Yeehy SX330 chipset. So yeah, after the intro, we're going to come right back up and I'm going to talk about it, give you some specs, blah, 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 blah. Again, nothing too in-depth with this one. I'm sure you've seen a billion and one reviews on this thing because it's been around for a minute. And a lot of people reviewed it, and it was a solid piece of hardware back then. We're going to take a look and see if it's still a solid piece of hardware now. So anyway, let's cut to the intro. We're going to come right back, and then we'll get right into it. So stand by, check it out. Alrighty then, and we are back up top here. Actually, we're not going down the table at all. I forgot to mention that in the little blip in the intro. Before we get into anything, the lighting's pretty decent in here today, but of course we've got recording issues. And outside, I'm sure you can hear the dogs and whatnot. It's a nice day out there. It's in the high 70s. Everyone's doing something. Got some guy out there mowing his grass, and a couple of dogs are just going absolutely nuts out there. So forgive all the background noise that's picking up. We'll see if Audacity can kind of clear most of that noise out. Anyway, not here about that. We are here about this, the bottom part. We are looking at the IPV5 by Pioneer4You. On top of it, I'm going to have the UL Crown that I got with this thing. And again, let's go ahead and just get into this, dive right in, and then we'll talk about what I think. So what do we got here? It's a pretty beastie mod, and I'm going to have some specs over on this side here. Yeehy SX330 chipset. Height-wise, we're looking at, I've got a cheat sheet off to the side, so sorry if I'm looking, 95 millimeters. That's 95 millimeters in that direction, 48 millimeters in that direction, and side to side, it is 27 millimeters. Now keep in mind, if you look at this thing up close, see if I can get edge on, it's got some beveled edges all around. It is 27 millimeters all the way out to the sides. If you count the bevels here, they go in about 2.5 millimeters all around. So if you look at it dead on the top, this UL Crown has a 22 millimeter base, and the base actually sits dead flush with all the beveling. I don't think that was the best choice in the world. If you're going to make it a 27 millimeter mod, make it flat. That way you can accommodate anything. But you got to keep in mind when this thing was released. It was either in, again, I don't recall a date. It was either at the end of 2015 or the beginning of 2016. If it was in 2015, it was very much at the end. If it was in 2016, it was very much in the beginning. So depending on what part of the world you're in, both of those statements is probably going to be true. I just wish it was flush, because this is when, about that time, 24 millimeter, really popular 24 millimeter mods started coming out about, and it would be nice if this can accommodate a 24 millimeter tank. Now, if I put a 24 on here, it's not going to overhang the sides, but it will overhang that little bevel, and it looks a little funky, but you're not going to get a proper overhang, because this guy here is 24 millimeters, the AFC ring on the UL Crown, and it does actually still sit in from the outside of this noticeably. But that being said, 24 millimeter device will not look bad on this. Neither does this 22/24 millimeter device. Yeah, it's got the Yeehy chipset that everyone and their mother has seen. Dual 18650 device. Last time you saw this, I had a couple of LG Browns on this. Right now I've got some Samsung IMRs, both of them, both sets of these rather, have 3000 milliamp hour batteries, and that's the way I recommend doing anything like this. Buy at least one, preferably 2 sets of batteries, and just swap them out. Another caveat with this is it's got the USB port on the front here. That's for firmware upgrade only. It does not support the chipset, not just the device. The chipset does not support charging over USB. So that's something to keep in mind. If you get one of these, have a battery charger on hand, or plan on getting one. They're pretty cheap. You can get a good one fairly inexpensively. Standard Yeehee chipset. I mean, you got your presets that you can scroll through very easily, and I'm not going to bore you to death with that. I've played around with temp control on this. This is not, it's a stainless steel coil, but I'm not doing temp control with it. It works fine. I've had another atomizer on here with stainless steel, and it's a Yeehee board. It's going to work perfectly fine. I got the stainless steel finish. It's seen better days. It's a little beaten up right now and scuffed, but it came that way with me. And I just actually encountered one of my cons with this: the battery door. You can grab it from the side there. There's a little purchase right there that you can just pick the door off and slide it directly. The way it's meant to come off, though, is to slide and peel. That's all fine and good, but it's held with magnet there, magnets there, matching magnets over here. And that's fine and good. The magnets aren't quite strong enough, and what happens is, as you grab this thing and you start using it, and I've found especially in my right hand, my thumb rests right there because I trigger fire this thing, and just gripping the thing, that happens. So that's my major con with it. I wish they had used a different type of retention system. I wish it had a clip in here rather than the magnets, or a clip in addition to the magnets, and I think that would be perfectly fine. Now, while the door is in there, no rattle. No button rattle, no device rattle, no battery rattle at all. So, yay, that's good. I just don't like the door. And I'm a guy who fidgets, so as I'm using this thing, I find myself doing that. My wife doesn't like it. How does it vape? It's a Yeehee. So right now I've got it at 55 watts. Perfectly fine. It is in theory, 200 watt device. In practice, maybe. That's what the air quotes in the intro were about. It's a dual 18650 device. You can get a dual 18650 device to do 200 watts, but only under really, really tight, really, really stringent conditions. This being a Yeehee board, it maxes out at 7.5 volts. That means you have to have a build in here that is at or lower than something like 0.28 ohms, and you have to have fully charged batteries, and only the first couple of pulls you're going to be able to manage 200 watts. Very, very stringent conditions. But if you can get past that, it's a solid 150, 170, 100, even 180 watt device. And it'll do that all day. General rule of thumb with 18650s, if you're looking for 200 watts, you need 3 batteries. You just do, and you need them in series. Otherwise, you're just not going to get the voltage output that you need to provide enough power to the coil. And that's what it boils down to at the end of the day. I'm not going to bore you to death with minimum resistance and yada, yada, yada. These things fire low. And like I said, 7.5 volts output maximum. So if you prefer a 0.5 ohm coil like this, your maximum output is going to be something like 112 watts. Yeah. So, yeah, let's run it through its paces, and I'm going to start off real low with this. 20 watts on the Yule Crown. I don't even know if this thing will fire this low. Kind of. Yeah, I mean, it's a weak vape, but that's more about this being underpowered right now than this not pushing enough. It's 20 watts. This tank's just not getting enough. 37.5. It's a little higher than the minimum recommended wattage going to this coil. Better. Still a little bit weak sauce, but you see the vapor's improved. And it's a solid 37 watt vape. I mean, it feels like a 37 watt vape. Again, I don't have the equipment that P. Basardo or DJ LSV Vapes has. I don't have oscilloscope and yada, yada, yada to hook up to this thing to get you true numbers. But, you know, I've been vaping for a long time, since 2012. And I know what a 30 watt vape feels like. And yeah, this feels like a mid 30 watt vape. Yep, nothing wrong with that. Move up another setting. 55 watts. Absolutely, that's 55 watts. And it's hitting, it's a hard 55 watts too. Right in the middle of the settings, directly in the middle of the recommended settings for this particular atomizer coil. 30 to 80 watts, I think, was the maximum, or the recommended setting, so 55, dead in the middle. And it's vaping solid. So, let's push it up higher. 75 watts. This is right at the top end of what this coil is supposed to be able to do. Yep. Good vape. A little hot for my taste, but yeah. 100 watts. This is going to be a short pull. And, you know, like I said in the last review, the UL Crown will do 100 watts. It's just not optimal. I'm not getting a whole lot of flavor out of this right now. And I don't like doing those little baby pulls like that. Now, take a look at the screen. Let me give it a quick fire there. 100 watts, 7.3 volts, because it's reading this coil right now at 0.53 ohms. Now, let's adjust the wattage. And watch the wattage and the voltage as I go through it. Now, 0.53 ohms, 107 watts. The voltage did not go up to any higher. Again, maximum 7.5 volts. That's all this thing is going to output. If I go up to 123 watts, or back down to that 107 watts, I've got 7.5 volts out of this. So if I max this out, in theory, let's get that all the way up, 200 watts, I'm still only going to get 107 watt vape. Yep, same exact vape. So it'll read 200 on the screen, and a lot of mods do this. And a lot of folks say the same thing about all kinds of stuff. Seen a bunch of reviews about, seen a recent review, actually, about the eLeaf, iStick QC. Brain's not working today. And the reviewer said, well, for the money, the roughly $45 that the mod costs by itself, I could go out and get a dual 18650 minikin or whatever, blah, 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 that does 222 watts. I think they were comparing it to the Predator or the Alien, one or the other. Dual 18650 device. And they said, yeah, that thing will do 228 watts or 222 watts or 220 watts, whatever it was. And they said, yeah, I can get a dual device that does more wattage. It will only read that on the screen on that device. It's going to max out its voltage on the Alien, the Predator, all that stuff off of the dual 18650s. And you're not going to get a true 200 watts out of that thing. Again, under really tight, really stringent conditions, if I had a lower, much lower resistance coil in this thing, I could get 200 watts out of this through this. No problem. But only while I had fully charged batteries. Because as your voltage in each battery drops down, remember, this is running in series. If you look at it, you got the positive, negative, positive, negative. So it's running in a series. Forgive the noise from upstairs. That is the minion with the other minion. Anyway, running in series. Two 4.2 volt batteries running in series gives you 8.4 volts. As the batteries drain, theoretically evenly in this device, that's going to drop down. And it drops down doubly fast. You know, as a single 18650 drops down 0.2 volts, a series dual 18650 will drop down 0.4 volts. So yeah, your maximum output is going to drastically change very rapidly. So you need to have a really low device, you need to have full batteries, and you need to reserve yourself to the fact that you're only going to get this vape for maybe a handful of pulls, and that's it. So compared to other dual 18650 devices, even the ones that we have today, it still performs just as well. And for that reason, I think your triple, quad, 5 18650 devices, yes, they are coming out. Kanger has their Kanger 5.6, and the thing literally has two 18650s on each side and then one around the back. The thing is nuts, or on the front, one or the other. It's got 5 18650s wrapped around the device, but it only has a 222 watt output. And I'd imagine it's a very solid 222 watts because it's running those devices, those batteries rather, in series. So yeah, you probably get a hell of a lot battery life out of that thing too. And speaking of battery life, what do I have in this? Like I said, the IMR Samsung, 3,000 milliamp hours. In theory, I've got 6,000 milliamp hours in here running in series. I get pretty good battery life out of this thing with these batteries, and I don't fire high enough wattage, low enough resistance that I need anything beyond the amperage load that these batteries provide. These provide continuous 15 amp draw. If I'm running this thing at 100 watts, I'm drawing something like 14 amps. These batteries will do that just fine as a single battery. In a dual series, no problem. What else? So let's go over some of the features of the thing. And you got your old-fashioned fire button up and down. You got your USB at the bottom again. Firmware upgrade only. That's the biggest con that this device is going to have to a lot of folks. You cannot charge this thing through the wall. You have to have a battery charger, or you can cheat. If you have another dual 18650 device, pull these out, pop them in that device, charge it off the wall. Just as easy to go get a battery charger though. And like I said, I recommend getting a couple of sets of batteries. Got your branding feces there, more branding feces there, some stylized marks there that you would think is venting, but is not. And on the bottom, you actually have venting. Battery door comes off, like I showed you. Batteries have the little ribbon. They pop out no problem. They're series. They are spring-loaded. And on the top, you got a very, very, very long threading on this thing. Pretty standard 510 connector, no air slots on this, so anything that's air-fed from the bottom is not going to work on this. And a spring-loaded 510 with a hell of a long throw on it. So, yeah, I mean, this thing's solid. It's a brick. And it absolutely works. Is this thing still relevant in today's market? I think so, just based on the price. You can go to Fast Tech. They no longer carry it, but the last price they had on this thing was like $41. Let's compare it to a couple other devices. Your Alien or your Predator. Those very, very, very similar devices by different manufacturers. Obviously, you're going to get a smaller screen here, but the Yeehee boards provide you the information you need to know. And one thing I will say about this screen, even in direct sunlight outside, I can read it perfectly fine. It's a hell of a bright screen. I'll give them that. And it's got the same type of firing range. You're not going to get 200 true watts out of this, the Alien, or the Predator. Just not going to happen, Captain. I mean, the numbers just don't work out. If you want a true, consistent 200 watts, resign yourself to getting a at least triple 18650 device. RX200, RX200S, all the billions of iterations of the RX200, they'll do 200 watts all day, no problem. 3 18650s in series, yep, no issues. Compare it to something with a built-in battery like the already mentioned iStick QC. Hang on a second. Let's compare it to that. That iStick QC will do 200 watts consistently, but what it is, it doesn't just have a battery pack inside. The battery pack that's in that is effectively 3 18650s in series, 1600 milliamp hour 18650s running in series. So yeah, it can maintain that, and it's got a maximum 50 amp current. And you're not going to get that out of this unless you just got some really beastie batteries in this thing, and I don't know of any off the top of my head with that type of spec. So it's not going to perform as well as that, but the advantage that this has over the iStick QC is that if the batteries die and you got a spare set on you, pop these out, pop the other ones in, and boom, you got another 6,000 milliamp hours in your pocket. So if you're not a 200 watt vapor, it's still not a bad option. The only downfall of this thing is that it does not charge on the fly. Newer Yeehee boards do support on the fly charging with the USB, but this one does not. But do I think it's still a relevant device? Absolutely. Especially for the price. Like I said, Fastech listed it for like $41, $42, something like that. I'm not going to put a link down below to that or anything. I will link to Pioneer4U's page on this. But what you have with this is an established device. All kinds of accessories are available for this. All kinds of wraps and etc. are available for this. And you can find these, like I did, used for next to nothing. And it's still a damn good device. And you can find these probably brand new, I would imagine, for under $35. And for the price, I think that's a steal. Anyway, that's enough yapping about that thing. Last video. UL Crown. Absolutely. Still a relevant device. This video. The D5. Absolutely. Still a relevant device. Yep. Old stuff still works. As long as you're not vaping at 200, 300 watts. So, yeah. Check out my links below for advocacy. I'm not going to blah blah about that. Just take a look. We got to fight for our own rights to vape. No one else is going to do it. So, yeah. With that, I'll go ahead and leave you and say whatever product you have to use to stay off of the stinkies is the right product for you, no matter what anyone else says. Whether it's a big beast like this or, oh, speaking of that, weight. Empty, 318 grams. With a couple of 18650s, you're looking at half a kilo. Over a pound, so keep that in mind too. Anyway, whatever device you have to use, whether it's a brick like this, or some Sig-alike, or whatever, that's the right product for you, as long as you stay off the stinkies. So whatever you do, vape on, vape strong, and I'll see you for the next video.